What's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2016 Hyundai Genesis Coupe. Up front is a 3.8 liter V6 and down below is an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Genesis Coupe for two reasons. First of all, I haven't driven one in years. I have driven a 3.8 liter in 2015, but it was pretty heavily modified in the suspensional region, and that was back in high school, maybe early college for me, so I've grown and changed since then. But the second reason is that I always get asked, Zach, what is a good first car? And so I'm excited to share with you one of the best options out there. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. Quick and easy submission form, takes under a minute to fill out, and a link to that is found in the description below. But let's get back to that 3.8 liter V6 making 348 horsepower. Well, right off the bat, that is a fantastic number and one of the big draws to the Hyundai Genesis. Now, there was also a 2-liter turbo option offered, which was a 4-cylinder, and that made 271 horsepower. Back in the day, I would have said that both engines are pretty good offerings and that I recommend both of them. However, as time goes on, the 2-liter turbos are notorious for being modified and, well, quite frankly, messed with, and so finding a good running turbo 2-liter is going to be harder than finding the 3.8. There's not a whole lot of power mods you can do to the 3.8 off the shelf, so odds are you're going to get a better condition engine out of this car than you would in a 2-liter turbo. Now, like I said, paired to it is an 8-speed automatic, but you could find these in 6-speed manuals as well. I don't mind the 8-speed automatic. Of course, I would prefer the manual, but if it's going to be your one and only car, a lot of stop and go traffic, and you do prefer an automatic, the 8-speed does a good job. Last but not least, of course, the Genesis Coupe is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to actually drive the Genesis Coupe? Well, I like it a lot. If you're familiar with sports cars of the era, you're gonna fit right in. Nissan 370Z, Scion FRS, that sort of style. They're pretty quick and nimble. The ride is a little bit stiffer than what you would find in like a passenger car. If you're comparing this to an Accord or a Camry, yeah, it's gonna ride a little bit stiffer than that, but it's a sports car, so you should be ready for that when you sign up. Visibility is good. However, this vehicle does have a window banner, so that does hurt the forward visibility, but on a stock one, you're not gonna have any issues. So with that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have some physical gauges and some screens. Off to the left, I have my speedometer as well as my coolant temperature and what gear I'm in a little digital readout. And off to the right, I have my tachometer with fuel in a little digital readout. I really like the blue in the gauges, nice, calm, and collected, and nothing too crazy. On the steering wheel, on the left, I have my volume, skip track, mode, mute, and voice commands. And off to the right, I have my cruise control options as well as my phone options. The overall steering wheel, definitely very dated. I would place it around like 2012 looking, which isn't my favorite, but again, this car is out of production. It's been several years. I can't fault it that hard. Off to the left, I do have a climate control vent as well as my trip reset, and I do have this little readout here. This is not factory. This does not come on the Hyundai Genesis Coupe. However, the owner purchased this to actually cut out the throttle lag, which plagues these cars, and it plugs directly into the pedal. He got it off Amazon for like 40 bucks. So that's something you could seek out if you want, but this is not a factory part for the Hyundai Genesis Coupe. I do have my traction control off button down below as well as my gauge dimmer switch, and moving onto the door, I have my power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Moving into the center, we do have two different screens. So up above, this is gonna be like your information screen, navigation, things like that. And then down below is the radio. However, this radio has been swapped out. This is an aftermarket unit, just so you're aware. Then we get 3 gauges in the center. I love that Hyundai did this. I think it's really, really cool. Off to the left is my fuel consumption gauge, much like a BMW. Torque in the center, and oil temperature off to the right. Now this not only opens up tons of opportunities for aftermarket gauges, but it's just cool to see them working and doing things. Feels like your car is actually doing more work than it is, which is kind of a fun feeling. Then we have the hazard switch, passenger airbag off, and our climate controls. The climate controls are a little spread out. Temperature off to the left, fan speed off to the right, where to send it down below. I do get heated seats. I do not get any dual zone climate, but in a small vehicle like this, that is fine. I do get a little openable cubby in the center of that. Love that little added detail. And then we have the shifter. Now, of course, the shift knob and boot have been swapped out, and it is just a standard automatic shifter. The button is on the back of the shift knob, and you move it forward and back to put it in and out of gear. But then we do have 2 cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Hyundai Genesis Coupe, and excitingly, it does not pass in the front, but in the rear cup holder, it does, in fact, get a full pass for the big friggin' bottle test. This has to be one of the sportiest cars and the only car in this segment that I can think of that does, in fact, pass the big friggin' bottle test. Then we do get a little center console, and inside here, not only do you get a 12-volt outlet, but there's this little oddly shaped port. This will charge your wireless key fob. So you put it in there, and it's supposed to charge it, which is kind of interesting. It is not required for starting the vehicle. You can keep that in your pocket, but just something of note that you don't see much of in cars. Now we got to move on to the seats, and I love that these seats are not just the standard charcoal, dark, whatever color. They actually have a little bit of pop to them. I love the tan, brown accents in here. And for the Genesis Coupe, you didn't see that a whole lot. They were mostly cloth black seats. And so this is a very nice change of pace. They are power seats as well. And as I mentioned, they are heated. So all the bells and whistles for the seats here. However, speaking of seats, although this is a coupe, let's hop out and do a backseat review. People often ask me, what's the worst part of the job? It's this. It's trying to get in the back of coupes. Being a larger fellow, it doesn't often work. Here we are. All right, in the back of the Genesis Coupe. There's no way I could sit back here comfortably on a drive. My head is hitting the ceiling, even slumping down like I'm trying to hide in 7th period math and just have the day end. Yeah, these are not good, but what I do appreciate is that the brown leather carries on back here. Love that little detail. I don't get any like cup holders, nothing like that. Yeah. These are if you need them seats, but that's on brand. The Scion FRS/BRZ back seats are awful. So it's on brand. It's nothing new. It's just, yeah, these are not good for a big boy like me. Let's go take a quick look at the trunk. All right, around the back of the Genesis Coupe, I do have a press and hold here on the key fob to pop the trunk, but nothing happens. You have to pull it up like that. Now, the owner does keep all of his detailing stuff back here, which is really nice. You do get a decent amount of space. Against a new GR86 from Toyota, this has tons more space. I haven't been in a 370Z in a couple of years, so I don't quite remember how much space was back here. But for a coupe, for just a daily driver, you don't have a family, it's actually pretty decent. So I would say this is a good amount of trunk space for the caliber of car of which this is. Now we got to talk about the looks, and I've always really liked the look of the Genesis Coupe. Now, of course, this particular vehicle is just a little bit different. It has some visual modifications done to it, like an aftermarket hood, badge delete, things like that. But overall, I think the Genesis Coupe is styled really, really well. And it was actually styled by the same guy who did the Chrysler Crossfire. So, fun little piece of trivia for you this morning. However, with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think finally being back in the seat of a 3.8 liter Genesis Coupe? Well, I like this car a lot. I think the only real issues you're gonna find with this car are going to be neglect from a previous owner. These being enthusiast cars, people like to modify them, but not everyone knows how to modify cars correctly. And so you're gonna find a lot of these with blown up engines and transmissions and horrible, gaudy modifications done to them because they're accessible and easy to do. But you can't fault the Genesis Coupe for that. If you could find a low mileage, grandparent owned one, you're gonna be in the gold. And so let's get back to my first talking point I opened the video with is I get 2 questions almost every day in my Instagram DMs. The first one is, Zach, how can I get a chiseled jawline like yours? And the second question I always get is, what should my first car be? I am getting my license soon, or I recently got my license and want a fun car. What should I buy? Now, that first question I can't actually answer due to ongoing lawsuits, but the second question I will answer for you now. The Hyundai Genesis Coupe with the 3.8 liter. It's reliable, it's fun, it's sporty, it makes almost 350 horsepower, which is more than healthy for any kid. You do not need 500 horsepower to have fun. You really only need about 200. With the weight of cars these days, 200 seems to be a healthy amount. And so, whether you get the 2.0 turbo or the 3.8 V6, you're going to be well above that threshold, and it's going to be an enjoyable, fun car for you. The only reason I recommend the 3.8 liter more is that it is going to be a little bit more reliable. You're not going to have a turbo to worry about, and you're not going to have to worry that someone overbuilt the turbo, and then when they went to sell it, they just put the stock turbo back on. That doesn't really happen with the 3.8s, and so that's a worry you don't have to worry about. But it's fun, it's rear-wheel drive, and it's not going to get you into too much trouble. Now, of course, you could get into trouble in any car, but it's not a Hellcat. It's not going to get stolen every other Monday. It's not going to have an obnoxious supercharger whine, and you're not going to wrap it around a tree on prom night. So this is one of the best cars you can purchase if you just want a fun, easygoing car that isn't going to break the bank and isn't going to break your neck. Hyundai Genesis Coupe, one of the best to do it since 2010. This is also the final model year of the Genesis Coupe, so I'd highly recommend searching out a 2016. It's just going to be your best bet for the lowest mileage and the youngest car that you'll be able to find. They started production of these here in the US in 2010 and ran through 2016. So if someone tries to sell you a 2022, they are clearly bluffing. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ryan for letting me take out his Genesis Coupe with a 3.8 liter. Ryan's been awesome to work with. I'm glad we were finally able to find a time to film this car, and I'm just so happy to have another car under my belt that is so fantastic for first-time drivers. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.